You're someone with a vision for your practice, for your side hustle, and for your personal journey. But when it comes to establishing your path on how to get to where you want to be with your practice, things get a little messy. You're also someone who'd prefer to go in person instead of to groups and listening to everyone else's story. To me, it sounds like you could benefit from one-on-one consulting with our experienced Practice of the Practice consultants. From $5.95 a month and up, you can work with a consultant that will give you more direction and practical tried and tested tips matched to you and your goals. For more information, visit practiceofthepractice.com/apply. Again, that's practiceofthepractice.com/apply. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1321. I'm Joe Sanok, your host, and welcome to the Practice of the Practice podcast, where we're helping you build a thriving private practice you absolutely love. Now, as many of you have been following me over the last few weeks, I'm starting a counseling practice. Look at me. I started one back in 2006. I built it up to a group practice, sold that in 2019, then signed a 5-year non-compete clause, and have decided I'm going to jump back into that world. And I'm starting from scratch, and I'm giving myself only 2 hours per week and doing a podcast about it. Also doing some TikToks about it and streaming, trying to do some streaming on this as well. So if you're watching on any of those platforms, welcome. Glad you're here. I'm going to report out where I'm at with this. So this week, I spent just under 2 hours, and I'm going to tell you exactly where I spent my time. And we are going to be airing these episodes, too, of what was live from part of that. So I spent 30 minutes talking with my attorney. I spent 30 minutes meeting with Headway. I spent about 10 minutes texting a friend, which I'll tell you about, and then spent about 10 minutes working on the LLC. So first, let's talk about meeting with John, my attorney. I'm going to go back to those notes. And so earlier in the week, I met with John, my attorney, and to really talk through how I should structure the business in regards to LLC, which state to file in, how that works when you're going into other states. Actually, through that process, have ruled out something that I was planning to do. Initially, the Great Lakes states we were looking at were Michigan, Pennsylvania, and New York because of reimbursement rates. But in talking with John, talking to a few other people, it sounds like New York can be a little bit tricky when it comes to some of the employment law and things like that. So I do want to still be in New York, but it's not going to be one of our first three. So we're going to focus on Pennsylvania and Michigan. I'm already in Michigan. That makes sense. And then we're going to look at Pennsylvania and then also look to see if there's people that are licensed in other states around the Great Lakes. So we're hoping to start hiring in January for Great Lakes Online Counseling. But talk through that process with John about hiring, about structuring things, about what to focus on and what not. And through that process, because we're planning to be multi-state, he said that we can actually file the LLC in Wyoming because of their tax laws, because of their income tax, all of that. Some of the liability things are beneficial there. So I'm using Buffalo Wyoming Agents. It's a company out there that I've used with Practice of the Practice. So we're using that. We're not affiliates with them. They don't have any affiliate program. Buffalo Registered Agents. That's what it's called. And so talked with him about that. Talked with him about just kind of the plan of when to offer people a salary. Some of those things I have to sort through later on as we grow and go into kind of full-time type salaries, making sure we're paying enough. He recommended also using Gusto. That's also, as I talked to a payroll person this week who also does accounting. That was actually a potential sponsor for the podcast and just happened to be asking questions about that. She also recommended Gusto, who's been a sponsor of this podcast and was planning to use. So gusto.com/Joe. You can use that. I think you get 3 months free or something like that. I want to thank Headway for sponsoring this episode. As a group practice leader, you know that insurance and admin work can take up hours every week. Time you could be spending with clients or growing your team. Benefits reset season is the perfect opportunity to make improvements to those processes. That's why I personally recommend Headway for group practices. Headway lightens your load with fast and free insurance credentialing and admin support, plus offers competitive per-session rates and bi-weekly payments your team can count on. They're the only platform designed specifically for in-network group practices, and they work with therapy, psychiatric, and hybrid groups of all sizes. Thousands of group practice leaders use Headway to simplify insurance admin and reach more people through in-network care. The best part, there's no subscription fees. Now's a great time to join. With Headway, you'll be helping more people get the care they deserve while supporting your team with more clients and a lighter admin load. Make next year the best year yet for your group practice. Head on over to join.headway.co/Joe. That's join.headway.co/Joe to book a tour. So spend time talking to John. We'll air that full episode. Also met with Headway for my initial meeting. I went through their whole process. You know, they're a sponsor of the podcast, but wanted to really go through that process to see what it's like and get a lot of my questions answered, which was so awesome. And I'm going to try to get permission from them to get that recording from them to actually play the recording of our initial meeting. But really, I think that right now it's just going to be easier to start with a Headway and maybe later do credentialing. Because I met with Kay a couple weeks ago. Where are my notes from Kay? Right. Where did that go? Oh, yeah. Kay, talking about credentialing and things like that, which I think we already aired that episode. But thinking like before, in week 3, I thought I had to choose Headway, or I had to choose doing things my own way, or choose an Alma. But to be able to start with Headway and then see how that's going, one of the big things in looking at the amount that they pay for the 90837 here in Michigan, pretty competitive rates. We're able to kind of share the ranges for some of the different plans. There are some plans that are like $84, $89 that I'm just not going to go on. I'm going to really have probably 110 be the lowest that we take if we're doing insurance. So initially was thinking just doing like Blue Cross Blue Shield, but there's a number of insurances in Michigan that also are in that kind of range, that 110 to 130. So really kind of looking at those ranges, I wanted to compare those ranges to what people get when they're doing their own billing. So I texted a friend of mine and asked what the range was that she's getting through Blue Cross, and it was very similar. And so the amount that Headway takes from it versus all the things that I get, I mean, they're not sponsoring this episode. I don't think. Maybe they are. I haven't looked at that at the time of the recording, but just looking at the initial verification, getting paid on the 15th and the 1st, getting full access to the EHR, really wanting to limit my liability. So the clawback and audit protection, notes, templates, for me, where I'm at and wanting to put very little time into the management of the practice. This makes sense for growing a group practice within Headway. So planning to do that. Based on those numbers, if I'm averaging that 41 to 45% going back to the clinician, worked out kind of what that pay is going to be. It's going to break down to $50 per session, flat fee that we've talked about. Then when we move into a part-time person of 20 hours a week, did that based on 15 sessions per week at $50 a session, that's $750, and then 5 non-clinical hours of $30 an hour at $150. That's $900 a week times 50 weeks. That's $45,000 a year that we can pay a part-time person and still be in that 40%. So also because this practice is going to be completely online, that gives me a ton of money to put into advertising and other things to really keep people full. Also to do things like, maybe at some point we're going to want to do a staff meetup, fly everybody into Traverse City to meet up in person so that we do have that culture that Dan King talked about in regards to selling. Ran the numbers for a 3/4 time. That would end up being about $61,000 per year. That'd be based on 28 hours a week. And then if we went full-time at 35 hours, that'd be $74,000 a year and 4 weeks off. So starting to run some of those numbers, starting to kind of vision out what that would look like. A couple other things I worked on is I did file that LLC. So Great Lakes Online Counseling, I filed that just yesterday. I've got that all filed and kind of worked through that process. It took me probably 10 minutes to walk through that, to literally just say the name of the company, using all the address for the Buffalo registered agents. I just followed all their recommendations, had them also file with the IRS as well. All in, that was $203. So other costs that I would have had if I didn't know people is, that my attorney, John, I'm guessing for that half hour of his time, I didn't ask him what that rate would be, probably, $250 or so, but that was some simple questions that I can just answer for you here. Also, Session Sites is still working on the website, depending on kind of where that website comes in, that would probably be $2,000 to $3,000. So sessionsites.com/Joe if you're going to use them. But just sent a follow-up email with Tom, figuring that out. My next steps really are, I have to find my old NPI and CAQH information. I had that back in the day when I first started mental wellness counseling, when I was a 1099 in Kalamazoo, taking some insurance there. So I have to dig into that process. I'm hoping that doesn't take too much time. But I'm scheduled for my follow-up tour with Headway, just waiting on the paperwork in regards to the LLC. Then next, I'm going to be working on getting the bank account set up, getting it connected to QuickBooks. And then as soon as that website's live, I'm going to start hiring. So we'll probably start with it just being paid per session, with the idea that they can move into part-time and then full-time as we talk. So I'm going to want to see them averaging about 12 sessions per week before I offer that full-time position. Then at that point, we'll move into being that 20 hours a week, then probably hire a second person and really looking for multi-state people, maybe people with SciPac, to be able to be in lots of different states. And then I'll be spending a lot of time on that optimization of the website, because without a physical office, that's oftentimes pretty tough in regard to some of the SEO. So that's where we're at. And it's week 4 of starting a counseling practice from scratch. I guess I should add in this 10 minutes of doing this podcast as part of my 2 hours too. So hit my 2 hours. We could not do this show without our amazing sponsors. And today, Headway is our sponsor. If you are looking for help running your practice and want the best group practice you can have, you're going to want to sign up with Headway. They are trusted by thousands of group practice leaders to simplify their insurance admin and reach more people through in-network care. If you're curious about how Headway can help work for you, head on over to join.headway.co/Joe. That's join.headway.co/Joe to learn more. Thank you for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.